Roofless homes, toppled utility poles, waterlogged streets dominate the landscapes across Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica as people right now are recovering from Hurricane Melissa. That storm, we've been showing you this, pummeled its way through the Caribbean, becoming one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record, with winds peaking at nearly 300 kilometers per hour. Melissa is the latest storm in a growing trend of more intense hurricane seasons. So for more on how hurricanes are changing, we're joined this morning by Chris Fogarty from the Canadian Hurricane Center. Good morning.
Morning, Anne-Marie.
You know, we've been hearing from people all across the Caribbean who've said they've never experienced a storm like this one before. One of our guests this morning reminded us Beryl had, just hit Jamaica. Melissa was worse, and she worries about the island being ready for hurricane season next year. How much worse is the damage from a Cat 5 like Melissa?
The higher up in the wind speeds you go with those different hurricane categories, the damage is almost like exponential. So, a category 2 or 3 is not necessarily half as much damage as a 5. It might be, a quarter or even less. So the damage from the highest of the winds, Jamaica, most of the island was, hurricane force winds went across the entire island. So the damage there must be immense.
We know that the infrastructure just really took a beating. Let's talk about speed and intensity. Melissa went from a tropical storm to a Cat 5 in 24 hours. What stood out to you about this storm? What did you see?
Well, what was concerning about Melissa when it was down in the Caribbean, there weren't any hurricanes in that part of the ocean yet this season. So there was this abundance of warm water, warm ocean for the hurricane to fuel off. And all the other characteristics were lined up to produce a very intense storm. So it was just a matter of time that it was going to explosively intensify, which it did. And they predicted that quite well.
Ocean water temperatures, we know, are averaging warmer every year. So how will this affect future hurricane seasons?
That's something we're watching and studying as we do our research, how things are changing over time. One of the things that we have a decent understanding is that there could be more, not necessarily more storms in the future, tropical storms and hurricanes, but the ones that do form may be particularly intense. And we've seen that very pattern unfold this year. Not, the number of hurricanes this year is actually a little bit below average, but the ones that have formed have been well above.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, there are less of them, but they are more intense when they're hitting landfall. So we're seeing more damage, experiencing more death, more destruction.
That's basically it. Yeah, if you have a bunch of small hurricanes, they kind of share the energy. But if you don't have a whole lot of them, the ones that do form seem to, absorb all the ocean energy all at once, which is not a good scenario, especially if it makes landfall.
According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, higher rates of rainfall and faster wind speeds are very likely for future storms. So how do we mitigate damage from intense hurricanes like these if the trend is towards more powerful storms?
Certainly the long-term remedy is really just understanding, learning from past events. How did the buildings respond to the high winds or the surge? Not building close to the ocean. That's a big, the ocean front is a draw because of the beauty. 99% of the time, this beautiful tropical paradise, but just that 1% of the time when a big storm hits, great damage. So building, not in prone areas is one of the keys.
That is the science behind what we know about hurricanes. But when you put that into reality against the pictures of what we're seeing now, places like Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti don't have the infrastructure. Most countries don't have the infrastructure to withstand a Cat 5 hurricane and then the aftermath. So what can they do in a storm when storms like Melissa become more common?
Yeah, that's the thing. Some countries, some nations, are poorer than others and don't have, the money to build solid concrete structures. So they have to survive, through different methods, shelters that are in communities, maybe schools that are built strong. They become a real focus of, rallying people together to protect them from the wind and surge. We see that. I think there was quite a bit of that in Jamaica as the storm approached.
Chris Fogarty from the Canadian Hurricane Center. Appreciate you coming on this morning. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Take care.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.